So I guess I will start with saying one thing about essentially the PWI 500, and that is I'm glad that Pro Wrestling Illustrated exists. More journalists that exist outside of the main companies, more people we can listen to like Dave LaGreca and Busted Open Radio on SiriusXM, who was at Impact this past week doing some ring announcing, and those kind of outside journalists that can kind of play middleman, that can kind of play what we're doing here and does not work for the company and kind of see things from a less biased perspective, can kind of give us the accurate attendance numbers and accurate things as best as they can. Great. Right? So Pro Wrestling Illustrated, hopefully it never stops existing, especially because in this landscape, I think it's probably one of the only wrestling magazines that still exist. Right? So good for that to exist. But getting into the list itself, I have to say a very curious list. We're just going to start with number one on the list, Seth freaking Rollins, right? Seth Rollins tops out the list. He's number one. Forgetting the rest of the list, just looking at Seth Rollins number one, what is your opinion on that?
I'm actually okay with it, and I do echo the same sentiments. Glad that Pro Wrestling Illustrated is a thing, because again, it is great to have. Me, I want to see as many people make a good living as possible doing things that they love. So just want to put that out there. But I'm gonna break down the rest of the list here in a minute. But the Seth Rollins one, I don't think people are going to give too much flack for that, because Seth Rollins is one of the best wrestlers on the planet. He's had a hell of a 2023. He's done everything you could ask him to do. Like he's put guys in good positions. Like recently, Shinsuke Nakamura, who hasn't done anything in a long time. Shinsuke was in the limelight again, and you get to see a really good Shinsuke Nakamura, back and forth interaction with Seth Rollins, not only in the ring but out of the ring as well. So Seth Rollins is one of those dudes where he brings it every single week. And I love the fact that, he's been injured, his back, we know this and that. And you're not medically cleared to be here tonight. And he still shows up. He's like, hey, I'm the champ. I'm going to come in. I'm going to do what I want. I'm going to come in every week and give the fans everything they're looking for. And he does that. He also has the best theme song in the business. You've been at many live shows. I've been at shows where we were singing his battle hymn, as Michael Cole says, where he, the whole thing. And the crowd just gets the juices flowing. He's got a great entrance. Everything about Seth Rollins checks all the boxes. So I am okay with Seth Rollins being number one. He's the number one guy on this list. He's also one of the top guys in WWE, which is the top to upper echelon, the top brand of wrestling in the world. So good for Seth Rollins. I'm happy about it.
Now, with Roman Reigns, he comes in at number two, and frankly, I think that's really high on this list. I think obviously Roman Reigns is the biggest name in professional wrestling right now, but it reminds me in the 90s where you just can't make Michael Jordan the MVP every single year. You got to look at some of his years where he was exceptionally better, the best version of Michael Jordan, right, would be an MVP. And then when it's not the best version of him, maybe we put him down the list a little bit and let other people have that limelight. Roman Reigns, for all intents and purposes, wrestled like a single-digit number of times. With house shows, he maybe wrestled a total of 10 times this year, right? So there's clearly some people who are maybe a little more deserving. He was, I think, number one last year. So there's no doubt of Roman Reigns and his ability to be the best. But I guess his work schedule, takes into account he's still the number one face in professional wrestling. I get that. I mean, let's be real. Hulk Hogan and The Rock are currently probably the biggest faces in professional wrestling right now. They don't even wrestle. Rock and Hulk Hogan haven't wrestled in years. Those are just the facts. When you say name a wrestler is the first person that comes to mind, it's The Rock, right? If The Rock came out at a wrestling show tomorrow, he would be the biggest name on that show. John Cena included. He's also somebody like that. But you got to take in some realistic counts, and you can't just make Hulk Hogan and John Cena and The Rock number one every single year because they're the name everybody knows. So I'm fine with Roman Reigns not being number one. I would actually put him much further down this list, not too farther down the list. But there's a name in this top 10 that really sticks out to me. There's two names actually in this top 10 that stick out to me that if you're going to do the Seth Rollins, putting him number one because he's both champion and been in a lot of stuff and been the workhorse, then there's two guys you got to move up this list much higher, and that is number 6, MJF. You got to probably move him to – I would say you move him to number 3, where Jon Moxley currently sits, because MJF, when it comes to being in AEW, I think MJF is higher on this list than John Moxley. I think John Moxley probably maybe deserves a top 10, but probably just near the end of that top 10 list. And then Cody Rhodes. I mean, Cody Rhodes needs to be moved up this list. That's why I'm not against Cody Rhodes not being champion, because Cody Rhodes is similar this year, at least, to what The Undertaker's been in the past, to what other mainstays have been in the past, and that's champion without the belt. Cody Rhodes, if he's main eventing a pay-per-view without a championship or anything on the line, people are going to tune in. I mean, he's just like that big name. He was on Payback, right? He did a segment on Payback where he didn't even reveal anything about himself. He just made an appearance because Roman Reigns isn't on that card. And right now, Cody Rhodes is essentially like Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins 1 and 2 are the two people that you're just going to put out there, even if it's just like, for example, when Cody Rhodes shows up on Raw just to chit chat. They have to, like, he'll be, if he wasn't here this week, they'll make sure to tell you he's going to be here next week.
Exactly.
And he has wrestled a lot. I got to bump MJF even higher than you. I have to put him at number 2 because to me, MJF, for me, he's the reason why I watch AEW, each week, because I want to know what he's doing next. To me, the whole thing with Adam Cole was fun. Like, he's just, to me, everything that MJF brings to the table, he's just entertaining. And to me, like, I'll watch the beginning of AEW just to see what's going on. And if I hear, we're going to hear from MJF, I know that I'm going to stick around and wait for MJF because I want to see what he's going to do. So for me, he's number 2. Nothing against Roman Reigns. I mean, obviously Roman Reigns is the tribal chief. He's what he's doing in the business right now. But I take into account, like you mentioned, his lighter schedule. So yeah, you slide him back a little bit because of that. But for me, the one on the list that bothers me is John Moxley. Like, I'm a huge fan of John Moxley. Like, I loved him as Dean Ambrose in WWE. I love everything he's done for the business. But to me, I don't know what it is, but like, I don't get as excited to watch him to wrestle anymore because it's like, okay, here we go. John Moxley's going to get bloody again. Like, it's like the same old shtick. And I'm like, okay, it's worked for a while, but I'm like, okay, dude, like, why can't we just stick to wrestling? Like, I don't need you to be bleeding like a stuffed pig, like every single match. Like, I just, to me, it's like it's run its course. So like, I still love Mox. I think he needs to be on the list, in the top 10, but I think he needs to be further down. Gunther, I would put Gunther, honestly, I'd put him at number 3. I think what he's done with the Intercontinental Championship, where he's got the longest reign in the history of WWE, and it's that history's 30 plus years old. So for what he's done for that belt and for what he's done for the company since he's been on the main roster, Gunther is a main attraction for me. Like, I love everything he's doing. And then quickly I'll say Cody Rhodes. I agree with you. I think he needs to be moved up a little bit because he won the Royal Rumble. He main evented WrestleMania, and he has been the face of the company. Whenever Roman Reigns isn't there, he's the guy they put out.
Exactly.
And by the way, he's a good wrestler. He's not just like, Hulk Hogan here or like an attraction just by name. I mean, he's physically a good wrestler. He
checks all the boxes. He checks the boxes in the same way Seth Rollins does. He brings everybody up. He literally, his theme song, not only the, people are doing the whoa, they're all getting all pumped up because you hear that first dun dun, and it's Cody Rhodes coming out as American Nightmare. You're ready, man. It's like you're juiced up. So like for me, he's got to be up a little bit further on the list. And you stole my thunder because when Roman Reigns is not there, because great minds think alike. When Roman Reigns is not there, Cody Rhodes is going to be on the show. Like that's, you got to have that guy on the show because Cody Rhodes is a draw. Now, one name in particular that, I thought it was interesting. We talked about him a little while ago, or shall I say, I talked about him about NXT a little while ago, is Carmelo Hayes is at number 13 on this list. I'm okay with it. I think Carmelo Hayes, even though he's not on the main roster, he's still, in my opinion, he's the top guy in NXT. I don't care if Braun Breaker's there or not. Carmelo Hayes is the top guy in NXT. Like he just puts on great matches. He doesn't look. He looks the part. He's on the microphone very well. He's got a great gimmick. His whole hymn thing, like that, like everything that he does is super talented. And we all know HBK Shawn Michaels loves Carmelo Hayes. So this guy, to me, yes, he's in NXT, but he is eventually. I mean, he has to be coming up to the main roster soon because at some point he's just in a different league, is in a different level. So Carmelo Hayes, for example, at 13, I am okay with.
One thing I think obviously they did kind of lazily, and that's put Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn right next to each other on this list. I think they did that obviously very lazy because they're tied in together. But the one problem I guess I have with the quote unquote laziness of this is the fact that if you were going to be lazy and put Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn in back to back spots, 21 and 22, you're going to put Kevin Owens in front of Sami Zayn. Kevin Owens is 21, Sami Zayn's 22. I think Sami Zayn should be 21 in that case, and Kevin Owens 22. Because he has been the one. I mean, Kevin Owens had a lot of great years, but this is Sami Zayn's year. This is the best year he's going to have. So the best year he's ever. I feel like look at the Elimination Chamber, right? Kevin Owens came out at the end to kind of help the day, but it was Sami Zayn in the main event. I understand Kevin Owens was in the main event of the Royal Rumble the month before, but in that match, still the focus was on Sami Zayn. What Sami Zayn is going to do with this. This was leading to Sami Zayn being the camera was on Sami Zayn in the Kevin Owens Roman Reigns match more than it was on Kevin Owens. Sami Zayn obviously main evented Elimination Chamber. Kevin Owens I think he came out at the very end of television, but he could have very well not even come out, and I don't think people would have thought too much of it. Even though that he was in Montreal, that was Sami Zayn's night, right? And Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens, they won the tag team belts, but I think that's just been I think that's why Sami Zayn comes out second, even in the tag team, because of the fact that he's going to get the biggest. His music is going to be the one they want to extend. They play the KO music for like 5 seconds, cut it off, and then they play Sami Zayn's music for him to come out and then them all the way to the ring.
He definitely should be higher on this list.
He should be higher on this list because of that fact. Think about, like I said, what I just said. Kevin Owens comes out first, so they only play a snippet of his music so that they can then play Sami Zayn's full music as the whole tag team goes to the ring. They wouldn't do that with like The Rock and Edge. They wouldn't have The Rock come out and play 2 seconds of his music, then have Edge come out, his tag team partner, and then play Edge and Rock to the ring under Edge's music. Kevin Owens walks to the ring under Sami Zayn's music, not the other way around. So you got to flip this on this list here.
Speaking of somebody else that needs to be higher on this list, and sure, people are gonna, people might debate me on this one and give me a hard time online, but Dominic Mysterio at 94. I mean, Dominic Mysterio, he's having a hell of a year. The fan reaction to him, he's nuclear. Like his heat is nuclear. Like he barely can talk on the microphone because of so much energy from the crowd where they're just so loud every time he tries to say a word. Like he is nuclear heat. And I think he's come a long way as a competitor in the ring. I think he's pretty decent on the microphone. I feel like he's done. I think the whole Judgment Day thing for him has made him into a star. And for me to have him at 94, like again, these lists are what they are. Like everybody's going to have their different opinions on it, and that's why I love these things because we all are going to look at wrestling from a different lens. And I give credit to the Pro Wrestling Illustrated folks for coming up with this list because it takes a lot of time to come up with 500 names. So, like, we can debate this all day long. But, like, that's the fun part about this. And Dominic Mysterio is one of those guys. He's at 94. And then I'm sitting here looking, LA Knight's at 130. And LA Knight is one of the most over guys in WWE right now. And literally there's been reports that have come out through the, through the circuit, through online, social media, whatnot, where he's internally like the top face, like on SmackDown. Like, he's the top face. Like, that should tell you all you need to know. Like, LA Knight's got literally a rocket, like a jetpack, where they're just sending him to the freaking moon. So for me, 130 I think is a little light for me. I mean, I wouldn't put him in the top 10 obviously because we got to see him do it for a little while. But like, he should be in the top 25 at this point, in my opinion.
This list reminds me a lot, and you're gonna like this. You're gonna like this, Brandon. So obviously, the NFL season has just began, and a lot of us have all competed in fantasy football. That's a very popular thing. And one thing, I do compete in fantasy football with my friends, but I'm not obviously as versed about it as a lot of other people. It's one of those things I do it as a camaraderie. We all get involved kind of thing. Yeah. So we have the people who are really into football and the people who just kind of casually play like anything else. So I've always had Tom Brady as my quarterback every single year. He's the person I recognize. He's the John Cena. I always pick him because he's just reliable. Some years he was really good for me. Some years he wasn't. But I'm not smart enough to pick the sexy underdog who nobody knows about, right? I just know this guy's won, so I'm going to pick this this guy, right? I don't know who the up-and-coming quarterback is. It's going to take the league by storm that no one knows about. I might as well just pick the safe bet, right? So this past year on fantasy football, while we were picking fantasy football, Tom Brady was somebody who was available to pick. I almost picked him as my very last pick, as a memorial pick, as somebody I've always had, as just somebody like, he's not dead. He's still here. He still might show up. Who knows? He could just be like a manager or like a veteran piece in the locker room. So he's still like available to pick. Similar to when you buy the WWE games and they got the Legends pack, you know what I mean? Or like when you could buy action figures back in the day and you could buy a Linda McMahon action figure just because she's a part of the show, right? Yeah. So there's like names on this list that we're talking about, which are very similar to be like, did they even have a match this year? I think they just made like a television appearance. And you were talking obviously about like, Bully Ray, right? Obviously, I mentioned this past week on Impact 1000, him and Devon teamed up for the first time in 7 years, and he's had a few little gimmick matches here and there. But I think the fact that he's just not fully officially retired, kind of puts him on this list as somebody who's like, well, they have to come up with 500 wrestlers, and he's been on TV this year. Yeah, I mean, he's not dead. He's not completely out of wrestling. He still exists. So, he shows up on this list of the PWI top 500 as somebody who's like, well, he still exists. He's still there. He still can get in the ring. I mean, I will say this much. I mean, I saw him in the Devon Dudley, right? And it is ceremonial. It's great seeing them in the ring, entertaining. It's fun, but he is not going to get in there and as a workhorse, I guess. You know what I mean? He's not going to put on a 60-minute match. He is going to be that, it's like Sandman, right? I've gone and seen Sandman recently show up in the ring at independent wrestling shows, and he stands there in a still position and hits you over the head with the cane or something like that. He's not going to do any sort of backflips or any of that nonsense. He's going to do the thing similar to, one time where Scott Hall was really drunk and showed up at an independent wrestling show, and like the other guys kind of like held him up. You know what I mean? Like I said, it's like Linda McMahon when she did her whole thing at WrestleMania 17 where she kicked Vince in the balls. Like, she's not going to do anything crazy. She's going to gingerly move over there, and while you stand there and wait for it, similar things. So, people like that show up on this list for those reasons. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of people who could be a lot higher on this list. You do kind of wonder, how opinion-based, how fact-based this is. There's no rankings next to it. There's no like ups and downs next to them where show like where they were, why you put them where you put them, wins or losses or TV appearances or anything like that. I imagine if you buy the magazine, there'll be a little blurb next to a bunch of these guys.
Steve, I was just thinking, we've been talking about it for the last few minutes. You know what we just overlooked? The top three are Seth Rollins, Roman Reigns, and Jon Moxley. Wow, the Shield's doing pretty well. Yeah. I just had to point that out. I'm sitting here looking at the list. I'm like, wait a second. The Shield's 1, 2, 3. So obviously the Shield forever, baby.
I mean, and part of those kind of like memorial picks, right? Edge is cracked the top 50, right? So, I mean, he could easily be down in the hundreds, I think, when it comes to...
I mean, Sammy Guevara could be higher. Darby Allin could be higher if you want. It's like, again, this list
Austin Theory is 45. Come on now.
I mean, Ricky Starks. I mean, we could go through this entire list and be like, yeah, this is how we should do it.
I don't want to be a WWE homer for sure. No. I will say this much. Josh Alexander comes in at number 9, and he is definitely somebody that I will say that to be not a WWE homer and not an AEW homer, he deserves to be in the top, right? He deserves to be maybe not in the top 10, but very close, or maybe even in the top 10, right? So I'm fine
with him being in the top 10. I'm literally Josh Alexander. I like me, like I don't watch the product, as much, on Impact. Like I know who he is. I've watched enough of the pay-per-views. Like when I watched him, like my eyes don't get off the TV because he is fun to watch. He's got a cool look. He does a hell of a job in the ring. So like for me, like I'm okay with him being like 9 or 10. Like I think he's the best of what they got over there.
We just don't need, I think, Orange Cassidy to be 8. I just don't think that.
Orange Cassidy to me, like, and you know what? I'm really quick before we get off. Orange Cassidy, to me, I have nothing against him. I think his gimmick's cool. Like, I think he's entertaining. But why the hell does AEW Dynamite have to have Orange Cassidy, like, start, like, every show? Like it's like Death Taxes and Orange Cassidy comes out first. Like the first thing you hear is the little piano, ding 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 ding. It's like I'm like, oh, here we go, another Dynamite, another Orange Cassidy coming out. And again, I don't dislike the guy. I really do like Orange Cassidy, but like Tony Khan, can you spice it up a little bit? Like you got guys in the back that barely wrestle, and you got him.
And here's why I don't think Orange Cassidy should be that high on the list, because I think Orange Cassidy's best years are ahead of him. Like MJF, right? He's having like a really good year, right? So we saw this a couple years ago that it was building up to him having like a championship caliber year, right? His best years are ahead of him. So that's when you put the Sami Zayn. Because here's the thing: if Sami Zayn is 22. That's as good as he's ever going to get, because this is Sami Zayn's best year. So you're setting up Orange Cassidy really high, because when he becomes the champion in the future, or he's having a really good year, where are you going to put him? You can't put him lower than where you put him this year. So when he's in MJF's position in 3 or 4 years, where are you going to put him? Because you already have him number 9.
You put him at 6 where MJF is now.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. So like you gotta, I mean, it's similar to, you know, any job you have. A lot of times when you do your like performance reviews, when you first get hired, they give you like B's because they want to make it so that there's that give you aspirations to grow. So with Orange Cassidy, he should be in the 20s, you know, because then that shows you why he's not in the top 10 and how he can get to the top 10. If you put him in the top 10 now, which he's currently not a champion, he just lost a championship, right? He's currently not a champion right now. He main evented the last pay-per-view, I think, only out of necessity for the fact that CM Punk just got fired. He probably was going to main event that pay-per-view. It came a week after the biggest pay-per-view in company history. So those kind of things, it just doesn't leave him a lot of room to grow, right? I think he should be in the 20s. Sami Zayn should be number 9 because that's the best he's ever going to be. This is his best year. So what are you telling Sami Zayn? That if you literally have the best year of your entire career, you main event pay-per-views, you sell out your hometown, you have people thinking that they should change the WrestleMania plans and put you in it when they've never thought that before. They never thought Sami Zayn should main event WrestleMania, but there was a consensus around the world saying, should Sami Zayn be thrown into this? Because Sami Zayn is having a year, and then he main events night 1 of WrestleMania as a consolation, and then he's main eventing Night of Champions as the tag team champions against Roman Reigns in kind of like a rematch situation, and he's still got everyone in the palm of his hands when he comes out. If he's going to be 22 with that kind of year, then you know that it's never going to be better than that. So it's a little disappointing from that sake. But that's going to wrap up our talk on the PWI 500. Go check it out.